Greetings, everyone. Greetings, greetings. I know it's early. We did not have F Your Feelings Friday last night, so I am not making it up. We're having it today, okay? It is F Your Feelings Friday, everybody. This is the makeup session, all right? I have to stay dedicated and true to what I believe in, y'all. So I'm showing up not just for you, but showing up for myself. Let me go ahead and put this on Do Not Disturb, y'all, so I don't have any more beeping sounds coming through here. How are y'all doing? How are y'all doing? I'm not going to be on here for too long, y'all. Not going to be on here for too long because I really should have been out of the house by now. I have so much to do. It's not even funny whatsoever, okay? But I hope y'all have been having a great start to your weekend. Heute ist Samstag, y'all. Today's Saturday. Today is the weekend. Die Wochenende. Today's topic is a topic that a lot of people don't want to talk about, don't care about, because they just don't have a care for it. But that's not going to negate the fact that we're going to get into this message regardless, okay? Because somebody needs to address this and there needs to be more attention put on it. More people need to take this matter seriously, especially if they have children and they are in the school system. This doesn't even matter if they go to private school or not, but today's topic is definitely going to be touching on the illiteracy rate in America. All right. Like I said, I know a lot of people don't care about it because people just don't care about reading anymore. People don't care about writing, effective communication anymore. People have gotten very, comfortable with being lazy. And there, to me, is no excuse for the nonsense of it all. No excuse whatsoever for people to be lazy out here, not caring about their child's proficiency level when it comes to reading. As you all know, a lot of people have children that are in school that can't read. And it's like when you bring up the topic, nobody cares about it. And it's just baffling to me how this nation has gotten into this situation, y'all. It is quite egregious, to say the least, that we're in this situation. And my thing is, people keep saying that the children, how are you, Tanishiano? People keep saying that the children are the future. If the children are the future, then why doesn't anyone care about the children's literacy rate? Because they're suffering out here, y'all, whether people know it or not. These children, I'm going to play some videos for y'all, and so you can see what's going on. And as you all know, I personally work with children on a regular basis. And compared to when I used to go to school, compared to now, it's totally different, y'all. The children are very, very much so struggling with writing, reading, comprehension, and analytical skills. And it's even affecting their math because they can't do math problems because they can't read the math problems. They can't read the directions. All right. So that's an issue too because they'll just sit there and not say anything. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and talk about this. So, like I said, if your child is going to school right now, you really want to make sure you're engaging in what they're doing in class because I'm telling you, it's not fair. You said you're a teacher and my students read for the first 10 minutes of class every day. Reading is the answer and people don't realize it. Cami iPad, I want to first of all say thank you so much. I appreciate what you do as a teacher. It's not until I started actually working, in the school system that I realized so much of what teachers do. And I'm a major advocate of teachers. I know a lot of times people like to blame teachers. Sometimes parents can be defensive, and that's one reason why I did not get into teaching, is because I didn't want to deal with the politics that are involved. I didn't want to have to deal with the teachers. I'm sorry, not the teachers, the parents, because I know that parents can be challenging, especially if they're in denial and they want someone to blame. And if they're not holding their children accountable, this is definitely going to affect their work. And so it's a concerted effort across the board. Everyone has to be on board with helping the children. This is a community effort. When they say that it takes a village, it really takes a village, right? Because I do know that maybe some parents are saying that they don't have time, right, to go over their children's work. And I just feel like I understand that you feel like you don't have time, but you really have to make the time. It is so important that your child reads at least 20 to 30 minutes a day. That's not too much to ask for. If your child is playing video games, your child needs to be reading for at least 20 to 30 minutes of that time that they're playing video games. It is essential, because they are smart. They are very intelligent. Don't ever think that just because they're a certain age that something is too complicated or they can't grasp the concept. There is no limit to what the brain can actually learn. That's one thing that we do know about the human mind and the human brain. There is no limit on the capacity of learning that's available to your brain. You can learn so many things in this lifetime. And learning, takes place for adults. We learn from children. I learn from children, and children learn from us. So it is very important that we stress how much, sorry, y'all, reading is important. I want to, there's some videos that I'm trying to pull up for y'all that I had come across where people in the school system are going to be sharing their experience of what they've encountered with these children, y'all. So let me just go back in my in my watch history, okay? And I'm gonna play some of these videos that I found, and I should have bookmarked them, but it's okay. I'm just gonna keep going back, and I'm pretty sure I will find these videos in just a second. Yeah, I'm coming across them right now. Here they go. And you can actually go on the internet and find these. These are all over the place about people talking about, you know, teachers that are getting frustrated. Teachers are actually quitting and giving up because it's almost like no one really cares. They're passing these children through to the next grade level with no accountability whatsoever. I even came across a video where one of the music teachers said that the children didn't know how to read the notes or recognize the letters A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And in music, those are the only letters that you deal with. A through G, 7 letters of the alphabet. And these were children, young adults in high school that didn't even know how to recognize the letters and also did not understand how to formulate the letters properly, like if they had to orchestrate a composition. That is very scary. So that goes back to the very primary fundamentals of education. Yeah, this is a real thing, and I'm hope I can play this video for y'all. If I can't, I'm gonna find it on my phone. I'm gonna have to share it that way because I don't think I'm on the right browser, unfortunately. Let me see what browser I'm on. Yeah, I pulled up the wrong browser. My apologies. So I'm going to have to play it on my phone and share it with you that way. But yeah, I definitely think these videos are essential to listen to and watch, because this has definitely been a thing across the board. Thank you for the subscription, everybody. And thank you for tuning in to the people that care about this topic. For one, I care about it a lot because when I was in school, I used to love to read when I was in elementary school. I don't know if y'all remember the Sweet Valley Twins. I was like in second grade, third, fourth grade, reading, loved writing, y'all. But now it seems like when you bring up yesterday, I was working with kindergarten. When I brought up story time, this boy told me that he didn't want story time. He didn't want to read books. Books are boring. Books are boring. And another girl was like, "No, books are fun. Books are fun." Yeah, I used to be so excited about the book fair, about going to the library. My mother used to take us to the library. Like I thought that books were an adventure to express your creativity, to go into a different realm in your imagination, and you just go into another world. And not only that, when the more that you read, the more your child reads, the more they can start to recognize words, understand how to spell correctly. Just it helps them a lot. I don't think parents understand how important this is. I don't know what went on between the last uh 2 to 3 to 4 generations, but this is really a problem. So let me find these videos, y'all. Hold on one second. All right, I gotta check my history view. Hold on. Let's see, how do I get to my history section? View all. Okay, here we go. Here's the history section here. And let's go back to the videos. 7 reasons. Okay. So a lot of nonsense is popping up right now. Okay, let's keep going back. I think. Okay, so millennial mom opts out of homework all year. So that's another thing that's going on. A lot of these children aren't getting homework. I got to get going, but thanks for talking about this. Yes, yeah, Cammie, I do understand. I know you're busy. I'm definitely going to be posting this video, so if you ever want to come back and watch it, you certainly can. It says teachers are done. America's moral decline. America's okay. No one wants to talk about it. All right, they're definitely judging you. All right, I'm gonna play this video right here. America's decline. I'm gonna start here because it popped up on my feed. Oh, here it is. High schoolers can't read basic level. Here we go. All right, let me turn this up.
As a music teacher, I didn't really think I had a whole lot to add to this conversation, but
okay, here we go.
Our students cannot read at grade level. As a music teacher, I didn't really think I had a whole lot to add to this conversation, but I don't think a lot of y'all understand how much this is affecting them in every single course that they're taking, not just the ones where they're having to write and read passages like science and math and reading courses, but it's affecting them in every aspect of their schooling.
Teresa is one of the teachers I listen to a lot on TikTok. I don't go on TikTok a lot, but whenever I see her, I like to hear her experience. I think she sounds like a very knowledgeable teacher.
I saw in my band hall with kids that did not know how to read at their grade level. So what I was noticing this past year with my students is they weren't just having those typical issues that you would have to work through. A lot of these kids would not even use alphabet symbols. They would be making up symbols. They would not even know how to write A, B, C, D, E, F, G on their piece of paper. They wouldn't know how to form those letters. They would also have issues not knowing alphabetical order in general. So if they knew how to write A, B, C, D, E, F, G, they couldn't answer to me what letter would come after C in the alphabet. And I would ask them things like that specifically. What comes after C in the alphabet?
That's why phonics is so important. Teaching phonics, the kids should at least know the ABC song. But yeah, learning the characters, learning how to say each individual character, and then blending and segmenting, they're so important. I did another video on the reading wars where we look at the 2 ways that reading has been taught recently.
They couldn't answer it. And I'm not just talking 1 or 2 kids in the class. I'm talking closer to 50%. And we're not also just talking about 6th graders. We're talking about 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. Kids that are about to go into high school. And did it make the job of teaching kids how to read music harder? Yes. But I think the reason why I'm wanting to point this out specifically is that a lot of teachers in middle school grades or upper level grades before you get into high school aren't necessarily dealing with skills that require you to go back to those remedial basics.
So a lot of people in the comments are saying that, wow, teachers are complaining about kids not being able to read. But if you're in high school, you're about to teach a lot of high-level things, and having to go back and teach phonics and reading to students about to go to high school, that's not what you're supposed to be teaching them. And that's why it's difficult. These are things kids are supposed to be learning in kindergarten.
Yes. So I'm sorry to interject here. You said, so true, America is terribly a stupid country, the Junior 1302. And I think they're doing this on purpose in some aspects. But I do know in school, it's very frustrating when you're trying to work with children and they just sit there and don't do anything, especially when you're trying to get them to do their math and they just sit there and stare, and you're wondering, you've been sitting here for 10 minutes and I'm checking around to make sure they're doing their work. What have you done? Nothing. And so then I'll have to ask the class, raise your hand if you cannot read, or raise your hand if you can read this, or you understand what to do. Many of them sit there because they don't understand the directions, because they can't read the directions. They don't know what to do. So you literally have to read the directions to them. And sometimes even when you tell them the directions on what to do, they have a comprehension problem and an analytical problem. So they still don't understand. And a lot of times you can break things down in multiple ways and they still don't grasp the concept or understand what to do with their math. It's very scary because they are very proficient with getting on their iPads. They're really good with technology. So I know that they have a capacity to learn, but it's like they're not grasping basic skills. And phonics is something that was taught when I was younger, when I was in like second, third grade. But I always excelled, like English learning, writing, and reading was always, and literature were my strong points. That's just something that came natural to me. Now I was not big on math, but I'm able to get through the basic functions of math. I'm It's scary because these children today aren't even able to get through the basics in math, the basic functions in math either. So when we talk about like even writing their alphabet, they don't even know how to properly write their alphabet. They're writing things backwards. Numbers are being written backwards. A lot of times they will recite the alphabet because they know the alphabet song. And then when you ask them, okay, what comes after B? What comes after C? They look at you like a deer in headlights. They're lost. They're confused. So then I have to go back and tell them, sing your alphabet song. A, B, C, and then I'll have to write it on the board and point to it as they sing the alphabet song because they did was just memorize a song. But if nobody is actually showing them as they're singing the song, they don't know what letter is which. And that's a scary thing. I got into it yesterday with the kindergartner, y'all, because I work with elementary age. I don't go up to middle school. I don't go up to high school. I refuse to deal with them because I don't need the attitude. But this kindergartner had so much attitude. He was talking to me like a grown adult. I was asking him to sit down because he was actually being a disruption to the rest of the class. And so a lot of times I will find that sometimes when children have these issues where they cannot read, cannot write, can't comprehend, a lot of times they will be a disruption to the rest of the class purposely, because they're not interested. But this was not the case with this boy. His teacher actually worked at this. I'm sorry, his mother actually worked at the school. She's a teacher, but he had a very big attitude problem. And I told him, I said, look, you got one more time to get smart with me. Because I asked him, what was he doing? And I think he said something to the effect of, what am I doing? What am I doing? Like he was talking to me like I'm questioning him like a grown adult. And I told him, you're not going to be speaking to me that way. So it's attitudes that are a challenge. If you try to get them to refocus and calm down, everything with him was a challenge. It was an attitude. It was, slamming stuff, stomping his feet, rolling his eyes, and all of this aggression for no reason. And then when I would not call on him and called on someone else, there was an attitude about that. He wanted to answer every question. He wanted to overtalk everybody in the class. If I called on another student, he's mad because they got the answer right. He actually got into it with me. Like he tried to have a battle with me because I asked them to spell the word the, right? And these are sight words that they have, just basic words that they have in kindergarten. The, a, at, sat. These are the type of words they're reading, like. So I said, spell the word the. And I tried to enunciate it the best that I could. The. I said, what two letters do you hear at the beginning? The. I kept saying it and repeating it, right? And I said, there's your word wall. Go look at your word wall because they have a word wall with all their sight words in alphabetical order. He went back and forth with me telling me that the has a D in it. I said, no, sweetheart, the does not have a D in it. There's no D in the word the. I said, listen, it's the. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. It's a D. And really was about to start crying because he thought he was right. So I had to say, you know what? If you don't believe me, go across the hall and ask another teacher. Ask your parents. The has no D in it. Then I told them to spell the word B, the most simplest word that you can spell. It's only a 2-letter word, B-E. And I said, sound it out, tap it out, because now they do this thing where they sound it out, tap it out, B-E, B, and blend, right? What word is B, is B-E, B-E? And I wrote it on the board. I said, B-E. What 2 letters do you hear? So I used it in a sentence, right? I said, I will, what did I say? I used the word like, I will be right back. I think I said something like that. I will be right back. He tries to tell me that the word B has the letter R in it. I said, there's no letter R in B. He said, right back, be right back. I said, no. I said, I was using it in a sentence. He got an attitude about that, y'all. So a lot of these issues with, the comprehension and the analytical, it starts with behavioral issues. It starts with behavior issues. I don't know what he's seeing at home. There was another little girl went in the bathroom, and the whole entire class heard her in the bathroom just going off, having a temper tantrum. So one of the boys asked her, "Are you okay?" So once she came out the bathroom, I asked her, I said, "What's going on? You okay?" "Yeah, it's just that my daddy's in jail and I can't see him enough." So she starts talking about that. But the girl is pretty bright, like she's pretty clever. So I said, "I'm so sorry you have to go through that." But I just tried to redirect the class. So y'all, there's a lot of stuff going on with these parents. And it's very unfortunate that it's affecting the children the way it is, as far as their behaviors, as far as their comprehension, as far as their literacy. But let's keep on to hear what some of these teachers are talking about. One second, y'all.
Elementary school. Now they're about to go to high school, or they're in high school, and they're not even able to do the basics such as reading and writing. So how are you supposed to go back and teach some students how to read and write, and other students advanced skills? Differentiation is a thing, but that's a major gap.
But in music class, we literally work with the alphabet every single day. We only work with A, B, C, D, E, F, G, 7 letters of the alphabet. And a lot of these kids do not know the first 7 letters of their alphabet or what order they go in. So I can only imagine how they are having issues reading and writing when they can't even identify the first 7 letters of the alphabet. It is a crisis. And before you say, well, maybe you're just not teaching the concept good enough for them to understand that they need to use the alphabet, I would see a correlation most of the time between the kids that were having those issues that I discussed and the ones that could not complete a writing assignment in music class, which I did have them write things out a lot. And oftentimes the same kids that could not identify their alphabet or write things in alphabetical order also could not write passages on their own that were legible and readable.
I know all last week, all over social media, you saw nothing but teachers talking about how elementary and middle school kids are reading 4 years below grade level. Well, as a high school teacher, I'm here to inform you that high school kids are doing way worse. They are reading 6 years below grade level. The only difference is a whole heap of these kids are going to graduate at the end of this school year. And we are expecting them to go to college and obtain jobs when they cannot even comprehend basic skills, which is why we probably see a problem with employers finding employees.
So a lot of people say it's because.
All right. So to speak to that, they're very right. Yeah, I didn't know that this was going on. Like I said, until I actually started working, and I travel from school to school. So this is a nationwide problem. I have a friend that lives in another state. She's seeing the same thing. And she works with middle school. She said that last school year, all they did all school year was play the ABC song over and over and over for middle school age children, so they would know their ABCs. My question and my problem with this, because I've seen children that I've worked with that were in like kindergarten, going to first grade going to second going to third going to fourth, and fourth going to fifth. And so I'll come back into the school and see them, they've passed another grade. And sometimes I question, how did they reach the next grade level? They're pushing them through, y'all. They are pushing these children through, knowing that they cannot read, knowing they can't write. They're penmanship, their handwriting looks like worse than a kindergartner. Looks like a preschooler wrote a lot of their papers. Their punctuation, they don't have it. It doesn't exist. I had to literally tell the fourth grade the other day to make sure they capitalize the word I whenever they're writing in a sentence. I said, this is always capitalized. There should be never be a lowercase I when you're referring to yourself. I is a proper noun. They don't know what a proper noun is. A noun is a person, place, or thing. You're naming a person, place, or thing. I had to keep trying to iterate this to them. And then sometimes I'll even try to write on the board, please check for punctuation. Please start with capital letters. Please double check your work before you turn it in. Stop telling me that you're done. And then when we go and read your work, it doesn't even make sense. So I have them to stand there and read it to me. I said, read this to me. And then they're struggling trying to read their own paper. I said, look, if you can't read your paper, do you think your teacher can read your paper? Because it needs to make sense to you. It needs to make sense to the reader. Do you think someone knows what you're trying to write if you can't even understand what you're reading? I'll tell them go back and fix it. And some of them, they had a poetry assignment the other day, and poetry is right in alignment with what I love. Y'all, I used to write poems from the time that I was like in elementary school all the way up until high school. Even as an adult, it was therapeutic for me. So that comes second nature to me. And I was reading some of their poems, which a lot of them didn't even read like poems. They were writing many paragraphs, and they didn't know the layout of a poem. So I had to, one of the boys, I rewrote the poem using his own words, but I just restructured it for him, like the first 3 to 4 stanzas. And then he wanted me to do the whole thing for him. And I said, no, I said, I want you to follow this format. I said, read how you wrote it, and now read how I wrote it. And every time I wrote it out, it flowed better. But when they wrote it, they were stumbling over it, right? And of course, there are grammatical issues that should not be made. They don't know when to use apostrophes. They don't understand that apostrophes is for ownership, right? Or contractions. And they probably don't know what a contraction is, because when you use these terminology and these definitions, they're very confused. So it's almost like you have to go back to the very basics, because this is the stuff that we were taught, just like in second, third, and of course in fourth grade, you're still learning these things. But at a fourth grade level, you should be able to write a complete essay. And I was talking to one of the teachers at the school, and she said a lot of these third graders aren't able to write an essay. But in her country, children are writing essays, and these children are way behind in America compared to other countries, y'all. And it's very scary out here. You said so true. America is a terribly stupid country. Who did it? Who did it? I think it's a culmination of things. It's a combination of parenting, lacking, skill set to actually work with their children on a daily basis. I feel like even on the weekends, if you know that your child is not proficient in reading or writing or understanding or comprehending or math, there should be no sports games and playing and doing all these extracurricular activities. Some of these children are in football, basketball, cheerleading, and all these extracurricular activities after school. And it needs to start there. It needs to start with prioritizing. Parents aren't prioritizing. And then, there's just a lack of homework being handed out because children are not completing their homework. When they have in-school assignments, y'all, I have seen teachers give tests and allow the test to be an open book assignment. Don't you know they still don't complete their open book assignments in the allotted time frame that is given to them? So then they are told that they can put it away and come back to it later. We never had that luxury. If we had any type of test, we had to complete it in that time frame, and we had to study for these tests. We had to take notes in class. These children don't take notes in class. When I had math, I used to take notes. I used to write down the math problems, the equations that the teacher was going over. These children don't take notes. What are notes? I have to tell them to write this stuff down. And they're like, oh, we can write. Yes, write it down. This is why I'm putting it up here, so you can have an example to go by. So when you have to do it, you have an example to remember how to do this. We know that everybody's not going to memorize how to learn a new strategy with math. So this is why you have to write it down. Repetition. And there's not enough repetition happening. I believe the only time they're really going through this stuff, y'all, is when they get in the classroom. I don't really think they're doing the homework like they're supposed to. And I don't think that parents are buying flashcards for their children, which is only $1.25 at the Dollar Tree. I don't think that the parents are going over their work assignments or homework. I think these children, a lot of them are left at their own devices. I think that is a big problem. I also feel that there's a big problem. Hold on, y'all. I got to put my cat away. Yeah. Come on. You're going in the cage. You're going in the cage. You got to go in the cage, sweetie. Go ahead. Go ahead. Thank you. All right. I think another part of the problem, y'all, is like it's just not a priority at home. If the parents make this a priority and let them know how important it is, important to their children, then their children will understand how important this is. Because I've also noticed when I show an interest in their work and I actually evaluate and go through their work, they actually push harder and they try harder. But I can see it's just simple things, little things that it takes to kind of push these children to make them want to do better. Positive reinforcement is definitely necessary, but you cannot just always be positive. Sometimes you have to be stern with the children. They can't always get their way. Everything cannot be a reward every single time. It should be expected, because when I was in school, it was expected for me to do these things. It was not, oh, you get rewarded for doing something you should have already been doing in the first place. And these children are they're very soft, they're very hypersensitive, and they need to hear the truth. They need to have constructive criticism. Everything cannot be, oh, good job, because if it's not a good job, I'm going to let them know that they can do better, and I'm going to push them. Children have to be pushed so they can expand their horizons and expand the parameters and the confinements of which they are, exercising. A lot of the children are doing mediocre work and turning it in, saying they're done, and they're not done because they haven't even reread over their work. They're not revising the work. They just feel like they're done because they finished it. And some of them are even skipping over questions and not answering questions in their entirety. The question says, give me, an example of, maybe the story might be like, tell me how you felt about this character's actions and tell me your reasons why. They will put like the most basic answers, a one-worded answer. If they can come up with a one-word answer, that's what they'll put. And then they won't answer the rest of the question, which says why. So I have to go back and say, you didn't finish answering this. It's just basic, they're very basic, y'all. Very simple-minded ways of thinking. So there's definitely an issue here, and they're trying to say COVID. Oh, well, he was a COVID baby. Y'all stop with that. COVID was 5 years ago. They're in 5th and 6th grade now. No, COVID is not the issue. COVID was never the freaking issue. You can't blame COVID for children not reading. It wasn't COVID that did this. I'm going to tell you something. I have 3 nephews. And when COVID came, I was working from home, and I also homeschooled my 3 nephews during COVID. One of my nephews had just started kindergarten when COVID hit. So he was in the frame of like learning all these basic fundamentals. And him and we had it out. I remember we went through blood, sweat, and tears for me to get the work out of him that I needed. But I was not going to sit there and baby him through it because he has to learn these things. And so I had my middle nephew, which was in kindergarten. He was actually doing double-digit addition in kindergarten, and it was getting the answers right. So this is very feasible to do. He was actually doing letter recognition. We were going over counting, and actually my first nephew already knew how to read before he got into kindergarten. He was reading at the age of 3. 3-letter words. He was already counting by the age of 3. So it's a matter of repetition, and is what the adults are instilling into the children. So if you're not preparing them before they get to Kindergarten, they're already behind. A lot of these kindergartners can't write their name, can't spell their name, don't know letter recognition, still don't know their ABCs, can't count to 10. And they leave it on the teachers to think that, oh, well, we'll just let the school deal with it. And the problem is that you have children in that class that are way more advanced because their parents took the time or somebody took the time. And then you have the ones that are less advanced. And so that's a challenge because now you have all these children on different levels and you're trying to teach. And it's not fair to the people that actually invested into their children that they have to actually be in a classroom. Well, now it's at a slower pace because that child is not going to get a lot out of that class. And then sometimes, especially with boys, when they are already bored because they already know the work, they will be a disruption and they'll have behavior issues, which will be an issue in the classroom. It starts, y'all, at the fundamental ages of preschool. If your child does go to preschool, which we did not, my sister and I, we just went straight into kindergarten, but it starts before they even get into school. It starts at home is what I'm saying. So a lot of these parents don't want to take accountability. I don't consider these people parents. They're baby creators and baby makers. That's what they are, because your children are a reflection of you. A lot of people don't want to hear this truth. Your children are a reflection of you. All right. So if your children can't read and write, it's not the teacher's fault, because the teacher is doing what they're supposed to do. If your child is getting into the classroom and they want to sit there and play around and not be engaged, and every 10 minutes the teacher has to interrupt class because of a behavior issue, there's not a lot of teaching going on. You said all started with participation trophies. Mediocrity is celebrated even with involved parents. You can't win. Yeah, I don't think that everybody should be rewarded for mediocre behavior. And see, and that's another thing. I had a child. So yesterday I had to go and check. They have these yellow folders that they send home with the children. So in the folder, depending on how they did for the day, they get a sticker for the day. So I looked at their calendars in the folder, and then you can write a note home to their parents depending on what that child did. One boy, I had to consistently tell him to stop doing what he was doing. Now, granted, he's so we have a lot of bilingual children that are still learning English because they have immigrated over here. So we have a lot of that going on too, right? But I'm going to tell you this. Even when I was learning German, when I lived in Germany, right? The teacher would speak to us in German, but I knew what they were saying based on how they communicated with us with hand gestures, things they pointed at. So I knew basically if they told us to sit down in German, I knew what that meant. Sit down. Stand up, we knew to stand up, right? So if I'm constantly telling the boy to stop, no, don't talk. He knows what I'm saying, but yet he still wants to be defiant because he thinks it's a daycare center. He thinks I'm a babysitter. And I had to tell these children, I'm not a babysitter. I'm not a daycare worker. You come to school to learn, not to play, right? He wants to roll around on the carpet. He wants to crawl around and flip around. He wants to do all these things other than what he's supposed to do, which is focusing on what we're talking about. Then he keeps digging in his nose, which I told him to stop a numerous amount of times. So when children do that, and they're doing this all the way up until 5th grade, I tell them to go wash your hands, okay? Because we have to have good practice of hygiene. I don't know who's not teaching this at home, but in class, we're going to have hygiene. You're going to cover your mouth when you cough. You're going to turn your head. Because one thing that's going on is it's a breeding ground of germs going on. Especially if you work with kindergarten, 1st grade. Kindergarten is the worst, y'all. The younger they are, the worse the germs. I got sick 3 times back to back earlier last school year. And it was a very grotesque situation that I was in. I have never been bedridden off of being sick because of children. And I have a really good immune system, y'all. I really don't get sick. But these children have a different type of potency when it comes to germs. And then the parents bring their children knowing they have runny noses, they have a cough, they're sneezing, they have a fever, they have temperatures. Why would you want to breathe that into the school system? And now you have a multitude of children catching these germs. The teacher's getting sick, she's out. It's just ridiculous. Stop sending your children to school when you know they're sick. That is very inconsiderate. It's very inconsiderate because that causes a whole host of issues for the school and the staff. But outside of that, They're not teaching some, I don't know where they're getting this bad hygiene from, So I will have them to, like, if we have time, wash your hands before lunch, especially if we just came from recess. And then we'll do hand sanitizer before lunch. Like if we don't have time, because it's very time consuming to get about 20 some children to wash their hands. That's like almost a 15-minute challenge right there. Getting them to the bathroom. That they say 5 minutes. No, because they go into the bathroom even in fourth grade, fifth grade. Y'all want to play in the bathroom. So a lot of these things that teachers are doing is not even teaching. It's just basic fundamentals of how to behave in public, in society. Don't play in the bathroom. Don't kick. Don't push. Don't shove. Stop having temper tantrums. Stop being a tattletale. Respect people. Don't call names. This is going on all throughout the day, y'all. All throughout the day. They can't work together. They're arguing over silly things, right? And these are the challenges that I really didn't go through. And so I'm trying to find what is the disconnect over the last 2 to 3 decades, 2 to 4 decades. What I find is this is a background issue from whatever they're being exposed to in the household. It's a behavior issue and it comes from the lack of parenting. Because, like I said, you can have a child. That doesn't mean that you're a parent. That means that you were just able to procreate. That's it. You can birth a child and not properly bring the child or raise the child properly. And this is why we have a lot of these issues. So you have children that haven't learned the fundamental skills that they need in, grade level school, primary school, going on to middle school, and they barely can write, barely can comprehend, don't think it's important. They don't think it's important. But like I said, a lot of these parents, they're just not engaged. So let's go ahead and skip on. Let's skip on and see and hear what the teachers have to say, y'all. And so at this point, I am very glad that I did not go into the profession of teaching because I really do enjoy working with children and helping them learn. I enjoy tutoring children and look at their little, brains light up when they've learned something new. Like I remember the other school year, it was a kindergarten class. I think it was kindergarten to first grade. And the girl was struggling with her math. And so I showed her a simple strategy, a simple step, reinforced it, and she got the concept like that. That's why I say these children they are smart. They're just not using their brains for some reason. It's like there's a disconnect somewhere. And when I saw her again, it was a whole different week, a whole different day, a whole different month. She came up to me and she gave me a hug. She said, "I remember you. You helped me with my math." So y'all, I don't know, but also too, the concept of math is a problem because now they've implemented Common Core and they've overcomplicated math when it really should be simplified. So the way that we learn math is not the way that they're learning math. I see some of this stuff and I am confused. And why are you doing all of these steps just to add, subtract, divide, and multiply? Because those are the basic concepts that you're going to need in society, right? Of outside of fractions and percentages and stuff like that. You really in real life, right? Unless you go into a certain profession, I mean, you might use some geometry, you might do some measuring, but for the most part, those are the main things you need. And these children are not grasping those concepts, which is scary. They're in third grade, still struggling with double digits, with triple digits. Third grade can't multiply, going to fourth grade, going to division. They don't understand the concepts, y'all, because now they have implemented Common Core, which is confusing your children if you didn't know. So if you have another way to teach them, I would highly suggest teach them the old-fashioned way, because I'm really, really thinking about coming up with like a session on the channel or on my Patreon where I just do like some tutoring sessions, just basic stuff with, the English language, writing, comprehension, and even with some math concepts, because I see that it's very helpful when I go over it with them. And when I tell them to write it down, do it like I'm showing you. Does this help? And I'll ask for their feedback. And if they tell me yes, and they want to do more, they ask, can we do another one? So if they're asking for more of it, then I know that, okay, they're starting to grasp it. And so I even get them engaged. So like we'll play games, I'll get them involved, I have them come to the board, I'll call on people to be the teacher for the day, and they really love that. So if I get them to teach, other children, because children also learn really well from other children. That's something that my nephews would do. So my youngest nephew, he's in second grade now, but his older nephew would, I'm sorry, his older brother would actually sit down and help do homework with him. And he's very highly intelligent. All three of my nephews are very highly intelligent for boys. Because, they like to say, oh, melanated boys can't read. Y'all, melanated boys can read. Actually, a lot of melanated boys can read. And you can tell which parents are spending time with their children in this aspect, right? So a lot of that's going on. But yeah, let me let y'all hear what the teachers are saying.
On or above grade level. See, the issue is schools have dumbed it down for kids. They have made it so easy that kids believe that their only job is to show up and behave. And that should be enough to get a passing grade and to go on to the next grade level. We have a real issue here. And please do not talk to me about graduation rates, because Bugs Bunny could graduate in this era. Make it make sense.
Yeah, so that's very true. As teachers, you've got these problem students in your class, and you're just like, man, I need to push them out. In many countries, you're supposed to keep the students in, no child left behind. So the students are basically being pushed through to the next grade. Remember when you were at school, you were so afraid of failing, because a few students would fail and they would be held back, and it's so embarrassing. Nobody wanted to feel that shame. Now students are just being pushed through so that they're the next grade's problem. And I think that has to stop. We have levels for a reason. And if we just continue to push students through, they're never going to learn. I think that's something very important that should be discussed.
Spell philosophy. Ain't no way, bro. You 16, he's 17. Y'all juniors and seniors in high school, man. Spell it. Ain't no way. I'll be erase the board. We're going to forget about the other stuff. I'm going to give y'all another chance. Spell philosophy.
Penmanship is so important too. What?
Keep going. I'm curious. I'm curious to see. Come on. Spell philosophy.
Yeah, lives matter.
Yeah. Man. Damn face. Come on. Get out the way. Let me see what y'all spell. Come on. All right.
That's about it.
So that's. Oh, y'all ain't done. So, philosophy. That's all fine. That's all fine word. Philosophy.
Oh my goodness.
Huh? Spell cute. I'm gonna give you something simple. I ain't gonna say that. Cute. That's a fourth grade word, dog. Spell cute. Spell it.
That's so close.
How did they spell it, y'all? I can't see.
That don't make no damn sense. That don't make no. I don't know what school you going to when you graduate. I don't know what it is. You're going back in grade. When you going back to the 9th, 7th, 5th, 6th, you going backwards. Spell two. There's 3 different ways you can spell two.
Right?
There's 3 different ways. Spell the first two.
Every week's a spelling test.
Spell two.
Maybe once a week.
Just go, bro. Ain't no way. Philosophy two.
What?
Cute. And y'all think y'all spelled this stuff right?
Did you know that in 2000?
You know what? Hold on. I gotta talk about that. What we just watched. That is not even funny, y'all. Did he say they were 17? How old did he say they were? Well, anyway, they're too old not to know how to spell those words. And that's another thing that I'm finding. So I've seen the most egregious ways of spelling. Like, and I granted, I understand if like some of the children are not, their first language is not English, because there's a lot of that going on. So I give them grace. And there are some that are bilingual that are outspelling the English speakers too. So that's going on. And a reason for that, he spelled it Qute. Oh my, you know what? Oh my gosh, a moment of silence for the illiteracy rate in America, y'all. I can't. Hold on. I got to turn my camera off. Let's have a moment of silence for the freaking illiteracy rate right now. Moment of silence is over. I can't believe he spelled cute, Qute. I couldn't see it. So my thing is this. I have seen some of the most egregious ways of them spelling, right? And in my head, I'm like, the first question I'm asking them is, do you read at home? Because I can tell if you're reading or not, because you wouldn't be spelling these words like this. Sometimes, sometimes. I'm like, you need to be reading every day. Like, if you obviously, if you can't read in class, if you can't spell, you definitely need to be reading. And you definitely need to be paying attention and focus. You shouldn't even be playing. And I tell them this in class. I'm like, you of all people should be paying attention. Why are you even laughing and joking and causing a ruckus in class, right? And then some of like the ones that can't speak English because they're bilingual, that's totally different because they're learning another language. So I understand. But if you are a native English speaker and you're at the age of these boys, there's no excuse. And the sad part is at their age, is I don't want to say it's too late, but it's even they're way so far behind that now it's going to be it's going to be that much harder for them to catch up. They're not probably even going to really catch up, because how do you catch up at that age? They have missed the basic fundamentals of understanding how to put words together. Cute, C-U-T-E. He spelled it Q-U-T-E. Y'all, I can't. And see, that's the stuff that I have a very low tolerance level for. I get so frustrated because it's no excuse for that. When it's no excuse for that, I let them know it's no excuse for that. And I hold the children also accountable. I let them know, is there someone at your house that can read with you? And then, sometimes they'll tell me that such and such, or, well, then I tell them, you need to read with them or go home and read. The same way they get on their iPads, they have this thing called iReady reading and iReady math. I don't know if all of y'all have it in the entire nation, but here in this region, they have iReady reading, iReady math. So they get on it at certain times of the day to teach them math and teach them how to read and stuff like that. A lot of them are on their iPads so much that that's the only thing that keeps them calm. And that's a problem, because sometimes it's beyond just being on a device. You need that one-on-one interaction. When I went to school, we didn't have iPads. We didn't have computers. I mean, we had computers, but that wasn't our primary source of learning everything. We weren't typing our stuff on computers at that age. Now their penmanship is suffering. They don't even know how to write in cursive, y'all. They've taken that out of the school. So in third grade, we learned cursive. If I write something in cursive, they don't know how to read it. That's a problem. How are they going to sign their signature? I guess they're going to use DocuSign, y'all. So America is dumbing these children down to the point where it's very scary, y'all. It's so scary. And it's like you want to be able to help them and reach them, but you have a limited amount of time in that time frame that you go over this curriculum, then you got to skip to the next thing. My thing is, they shouldn't even be worried about all this other stuff if we don't have the basic fundamentals down. Like, if they can't do the basics, you shouldn't even be trying to teach them anything else at this point. And I know they want to have a well-rounded curriculum, but all this extracurricular stuff is not even going to matter if they don't get the primary functions of what they're supposed to know, right? Because they can't expand and elaborate and go on to anything more if they're not grasping these simple concepts. So then when you put a worksheet in front of them, automatically they start sighing and groaning. Oh, we got to read all of this. It's maybe like one page, like with 3 paragraphs on it, or maybe 2 pages with a few paragraphs, and they sit there the entire time and don't do any work. They might answer a few questions like with mediocrity, barely able to write the word correctly, and then they're talking to their friends. They're playing, they're laughing, they're joking. This is what goes on, and it is going on across the board, y'all. And from my understanding, if you listen to some of these teachers, they even said even at the private school level, it's going on there, because what happens is that in private schools, they have a sense of entitlement. So the children feel like, I don't have to do anything because my parents have X, Y, and Z. She said one of the girls told the staff member, when the staff member tried to correct her, oh, you see that plaque right there? You don't say anything to me. My family owns this. And then the staff will sit there and reinforce the behavior because they're like, oh, well, their family donates to the library. This is why we have a library, because their family pretty much bought the library. So you mean to tell me this child gets to be mediocre and not do their due diligence in school and be disruptive and be very, I guess disrespectful because of the money that they have. And then I mean this goes on in society anyway, but I just know that private schools, some of them are no better, y'all. It is crazy. It's very crazy. Y'all don't believe me? You can definitely check out these videos. There's a lady on here, and she has a YouTube channel called Teacher Therapy. And I subscribe to her channel. I was watching how many teachers are quitting. I have been into schools, and they'll tell me, oh, our teacher left and she hasn't been back. So what they've done is they've gotten people to come in and work with the children, or what they'll do is they'll disperse her class, their classroom. So they might have like 20 some children, and now this other class that has 20 some children are going to get these remainder children. So now their class has gone up to like 30, 34 children, and they disperse all these children throughout all the classrooms because the teacher left and didn't show back up. This is really happening in real life. I have seen this in real life. And these children are running amok in the classroom. When I tell you the last thing they're worried about is learning, they think that school is for socializing only and having fun. There's no learning going on. And the few people that do care are quiet, laid back, doing their work. It's really a disturbance and a distraction. And it's so unfair to them because you are constantly yelling over top of them to get them to be quiet. And it's one teacher per classroom. So yesterday we had a special needs girl with nothing wrong with her. She was just as sweet as she could be. But I feel like when you're dealing with kindergarten and she's special needs, she has trouble maneuvering, getting up, walking, getting around. She had a special chair and stuff like that. There should at least be two adults at all times in these classroom settings. Teachers should be allowed to take breaks when they need to, go to the freaking bathroom when they need to, right? I asked one teacher, it was the end of the school day. I said, when do y'all eat lunch? She said, oh, I haven't had lunch today. I'm just now eating. The end of the school day, running on an empty stomach, and you're dealing with all these different energies, all that different energy. And then some teachers, you walk into their classroom, they're like, oh, just a moment. Do you mind? I just need to run to the restroom for a second. I'm like, go ahead, take your time. Because I know what they're going through. Teachers should not be put under that type of scrutiny. And then not just that, it's what they have to go through. Like they're dictated by the state, I believe, on what they can teach and how they can teach. This is how they got Common Core implemented into the school system. So it's not the teachers doing this. They have been dictated to that this is the curriculum you have to teach, and you have to teach it this way. That's why the children are confused with their math, y'all. You can blame them for that. So state legislation needs to get involved here. Parents need to get more involved. Go to these, parent teacher meetings. I'm hearing that a lot of the teachers are saying that parents or baby creators don't even show up to parent teacher meetings anymore. PTA meetings, they don't even get involved in that. Your child has, and then children, they're having separation anxiety. So because they're so used and so accustomed to being at home with their mothers, when they have to go to school, they're crying, y'all. I've witnessed this several times. The children are coming in the classroom crying. What's wrong with them? Oh, she misses her mother. Oh, he misses his mother. They shut down. That's going on. That's a thing too. So it's a lot of that. I don't agree with children being in kindergarten and not getting naps anymore. I don't agree with children being in kindergarten and not having nap time. When we were in kindergarten, even though I didn't need it, we had nap time. We had a certain time that we would lay down. We could take a nap. We could rest if we needed it. Children now are kindergarten. Y'all, some of them are getting out of school at almost 5 p.m. No joke. I worked at a school the other year. The end time was 4:45 p.m. No nap time. How do you expect them to fully engage and function throughout the day? You think they're going to concentrate in kindergarten? getting out of class at 5 p.m. That's craziness to me, y'all. Something needs to really change. And I don't agree that it takes 8 hours for these children to learn all of this stuff. Y'all, like I said, when I taught homeschool, we were doing this stuff in 4 hours. We touched on everything we need to touch on. We did English, we did writing, we did handwriting, we did social studies, we did math, we did science. In 4 hours, they were done. From 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., that was pretty much our schedule. 11, 12, 1, 2. They had their breakfast. I made sure they came downstairs. They ate their breakfast. I would call them into the room. My daddy got us a whiteboard. I told them what I needed them to do, made them work on it. I had their videos for them to watch, asked them about it. What did you learn? And like when I was upstairs working, I would come down and check on them. They were just fine. At the end of the entire session, when it was, time for it to end, at first they fought me on it. They didn't want to do anything. I said, y'all are not going to sit here and do nothing. This is auntie talking. This wasn't their mother. This was auntie telling them that they're not going to do this. So we took the whiteboard in the living room and they were required to do a presentation for Papa and Grandma. And my sister, we would FaceTime her sometimes because she was working too. She's working from home. So I would have them to present to them what they learned in all the subjects. So my oldest nephew had to tell what he learned and show it on the whiteboard and do his work and show what he learned. My other nephew had to do the same thing. Yeah, and that's what we did when COVID was going on. So homeschooling was a thing. And we didn't need all these like gadgets to teach them, just a simple TV, watch the video on social studies. And he was actually engaged in learning about the Native Americans because I thought he was bored. I said, you don't have to watch this. We can watch something else. No, auntie, I was watching that. I said, oh, so you're interested. I had him learning about Marcus Garvey. Tell me about Marcus Garvey because my oldest nephew, he's part Jamaican. So he learned about Marcus Garvey because that's something that we don't learn. They don't really teach us a lot about what they call Black history, even though I don't believe that Black history should be separated, right? I feel like all history is taking place at one time. So why are we separating the histories? That's craziness to me, right? But I didn't call it Black history for him. I said, I just want you to watch this video on Marcus Garvey. Tell me 3 things that you learned about Marcus Garvey. And so he did that for me. And I still have these videos saved in my phone, y'all. And so, yeah, COVID is not the problem. COVID was not the problem. I have to say that. If you were working with your children, COVID was not the problem. When they did go back to school, they were going to school from home. So they had these little laptops, y'all. I thought it was the cutest little thing. And so I FaceTime my nephew and they would be like, well, auntie, I'm about to sign on. And he was telling me what assignments he had and what he had to do. It was almost like they were in a business office setting. And I said, just look at this. Y'all, it is just so amazing how far technology has come. When I was going to school, we were learning on the Macintosh, Apple computers or whatever. And we were learning Control Alt Delete when they still had the big box computers and the floppy disks with the black screens and the green writing. Okay, that's what we were learning. Return, enter, space bar. And then the computer lab teacher would come in there and say, do not touch anything unless I tell you, right? He was very specific on that. So it's just so interesting how these children have more devices, more gadgets, and they are not learning as much. We had a lot less and we learned a lot more. I think they only need the basic fundamentals. I think they only need flashcards. I think they just need pen, paper, notebooks. And that's something else I want to talk about because I am tired of children coming to school, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, kindergarten as well. And they don't have pencils. And so they sit there in class and you're thinking that they're working and you're like, you didn't do anything. What are you doing? Your paper is blank. I need a pencil. Where's your pencil? I don't have one. So it's up to the teacher now to provide pencils for your children. How crazy is that, y'all, when pencils are $1.25 at Dollar Tree? How crazy is that? How crazy is it that your child can't sharpen their pencil because they don't have a pencil sharpener. So they ask to use the teacher's electric pencil sharpener, but they keep breaking it. So then she tells them they can't touch it anymore. It's crazy because I also know that pencil sharpeners are a thing that my mother used to make sure we had. Pencils are a thing that my mother she made sure we had. Notebook paper was a thing that teachers are providing that my mother made sure that we had, y'all. It's very interesting how baby creators are not parents anymore. So these school supplies are now being provided by the teacher. And from my understanding, teachers are coming out of pocket for a lot of things for these children. Why are they doing that when your child comes into class and they don't want to learn and they have all these disruptive, rude behaviors preventing the teacher from teaching the children? That is unfair and is very inconsiderate to the teachers, y'all. They sacrifice a lot. And like I said, I am very glad that I did not get into the profession of teaching at this point. You said, yes, it's indoctrination with the curriculum they want. Yeah, I agree with you about homeschooling. I really think if you are a parent that is capable of homeschooling and you have the time to do it, or if you have someone that can help you with it, I think that is the most profound way of going at this juncture, because I see that school is getting dumbed down. The expectation level is lowered. So now what we're going to have are technically graduates that really don't even deserve to graduate. High schoolers that don't deserve a diploma, a high school diploma, y'all. And if they're doing that, what's going to happen after they graduate? They can't comprehend. So you're going to have a bunch of illiterate adults being put into general population in this society. Who are going to be our nurses, our health practitioners, our attorneys, our judges, our police officers, people that really make a difference in this world? These professions that we need when we get older, we need these people to take care of us. Who are these people going to be? That's a very scary thing when you look at the fact that these people that you call children, because they're going to be young adults one day, and they're going to have very low comprehension levels, very low analytical skills. And a lot of them, another problem that I'm finding is they can't think without someone telling them what to do. So you'll write something on the board, you'll write a word on the board and the word tells them what to do in the description. I had one child the other day tell me, how do you spell favorite? I said, look on the board and tell me how you spell favorite. Oh, and then instead of them, like what I used to do, like when I was learning how to spell, I would look at the paragraph that had the word in it, and I knew that that word was correct. So I would just look back and copy the word. They won't do that. They'll be looking at you. How do you spell such and such? I'm like, then you just write it down right here. Isn't it right there in this paragraph? Look back at that paper and copy it. They have to know where to go to get the answer. Part of that is understanding how to learn as well as research, y'all. And trust me, they don't know anything about research. Because when we did research, we had encyclopedias, dictionaries. They have Google. It's a total different thing. And they don't even want to Google the word to spell it correctly. So that's a problem. We had the Dewey Decimal system, y'all. And I remember we had these little card catalogs in the library. You had to go to that Dewey Decimal system and try to research that way in the library, y'all. Go and find the book that you needed for your research paper. Write it by hand. And then your revised paper was one thing. You had to do the rough draft and your teacher would write all the things on it and you had to write it again by hand. And that was your final copy. Oh, these children they don't believe in that. What is a rough draft? If you tell them to make a correction, they're just going to do it in a very lazy, sloppy way because they don't want to rewrite anything. Oh, my hand hurts. Some of them think that they can go to sleep in class. Third graders, first graders, second graders, kindergartners, fourth graders, fifth graders think they can just take a nap because they're tired. I'm tired too. Do you know that I had to wake up at 5:30 a.m.? They want to start school at 7:30 a.m., which I think is craziness in my opinion. I don't think children should be going to school in the darkness. I don't think children should be having to get up before the sun comes up to go to these indoctrination camps, right? I disagree with that. I disagree with them being in school for 8 hours. You're preparing them to be on a job, being a laborer, being a worker. Remember John, what's his name? D. Rockefeller said, I don't want a nation full of thinkers. I want a nation full of laborers. So this is why you have this corporate plantation system that they're indoctrinating your children to get into. They don't want them to be able to think. They don't want them to understand how to start businesses. And trust me and believe me, a lot of these children aren't going to be able to start businesses because they're not going to grasp the concept of how to even start a business at this juncture. You said now they have AI and Chat GPT to research for them. They sure do. You said, yeah, school was overrated. CJ, I do believe that school was overrated. I honestly wish they could give me back my freaking time because it did not take us 13 years to learn this nonsense. It did not. And when I really think about how school prepared us, school didn't prepare us for real life. I can't think of any tool I use in the everyday world besides basic math. You do use reading and writing because you're typing in the comment section. So we need reading, we need writing. You do use that, but a lot of the stuff we didn't need, y'all. I'm just saying, like algebraic expressions. I had to reteach myself that when I was tutoring, y'all. I was tutoring second and third and fourth grade the other school year, and we had mixed fractions. I freaking forgot how to do this stuff, so I had to improvise on the spot, and I had to ask the math teacher, is this right? Y'all, once it gets past fourth grade math, my brain, that's it for me, y'all. When I was in high school, I'm going to be honest with y'all. I did not want to mess up my GPA because I had a good GPA. I didn't want to mess up my GPA, so I decided to forego taking calculus, pre-calculus, and physics. My brain, I always say, doesn't work that way. When you start talking about statistics and all that, no, thank you. I'm more of a language arts person. That's what I excelled in. So that's what my major was in. If it had to do with math, y'all, I stopped at algebra 2, and that was good enough for me. And I'm being honest. I did take business. I took accounting, and the reason I took accounting because in my head I was like, oh, this seems like so business minded, and I wanted to be like a business person. So I'm like, oh, this would help me. So y'all, I didn't like the fact. So in accounting, everything on the left side has to balance on the right side. So whatever you do on this side has to match this side. Yeah, it's like a balancing sheet. Y'all, that was confusing because the numbers do a whole bunch of things on both sides and it has to equal the same on both. It was just too much. But I ended up getting through it. I made a decent grade in accounting, unbeknownst to me. But if I didn't have to put myself through any more challenging math, then I negated to do that. Because math was not my strong suit, but I do know how to figure things out. And my point is, if these children are not getting just the basic concepts, they are not going to understand how to do that for themselves, right? They're not going to understand how to figure things out because, problem solving is using your critical thinking skills and your analytical skills. And the children, for one, they don't know how to problem solve, y'all, because they're being dictated to all day, every day, what to do. If you don't tell them what to do, then they'll just sit there like a deer in headlights. And that's a scary thing. You said, right. You laughing. No, it's true. I'm just saying, like, school, for real, I think by the time we get to, I don't know what grade level, y'all, but I just know that it didn't take us 13 years to learn this stuff. And they played with our time, and they really should be held accountable for playing with our freaking time, because we honestly could have gotten through college by the time we graduated high school. Honestly, I've seen people that did this that were homeschooled. By the time they were 16 and 17, they were in college. And people think, oh, wow, that's so profound. But guess what? It's very possible with the right type of reinforcement, the right type of structure. We all could have done that. We could have saved ourselves like at least 4 years from this nonsense. We could have been actually working towards our goals, our dreams, our talents, starting businesses. By the time you're 20, you could have had your business started, y'all. You could have had your business going. 25, you're a business owner. 35, you're retiring, right? You got somebody working for you. But they don't want us to think like that. So they waste our creative moments when we're going to school because, school can take a lot of your creativity away too. And that's another thing that I don't want to ever think, that children can't be creative. Like if they're drawing in class, I encourage it, but like if we're doing math and you're drawing, I will say something about it because that's not what we're doing right now. But I will give them a compliment. Hey, you're a great artist, but that's not what we're doing right now. So let's focus, okay? While that's a beautiful picture and I love your color scheme, that's not what we're doing, okay? So let's focus. That's not it. Because you don't ever want to like take away their creatistic, no, I'm sorry, um their creative, what am I trying to say, like their creativity. And I think that's something that definitely should be encouraged, playing instruments, whatever they're good at, because all of us, should have some type of gift or talent that we were born with, and we should exercise those things. For me, I always liked writing. That was a strong suit of mine, and I need to get back into it. What I find too is that writing helps you be able to speak more clearly and more concisely. I've seen children that have tried to stretch out their words, and so they use unnecessary words. And the teacher knows when you're doing this, by the way, because they have like a word limit. So it's like you're coming up with unnecessary words to say stuff. You don't need to do that, right? So it's just interesting what's going on here in the school system, y'all. Remember, we used to invent everything before the educational system? Yes. Creatistic, I like that. No, creativity, y'all. One thing I don't believe is making up words. I don't believe in making up words. Now, I know a lot of rappers make up words, okay? But I don't believe in making up words. And I do correct children, even though we all use slang. They call it code switching. Melanated people, we all know about the code switching because we do it all the time. So when we're on a professional level, we speak such way, and we were talking amongst ourselves, we speak another way. We code switch a lot, but that's just something that we do. I guess it's called a lazy tongue. That's something that I started doing more. Like I had more of a lazy tongue when I came back to the United States versus when I lived overseas. But you speak according to the people that you are around, that you hear talk. So even if you're not trying, it kind of it subconsciously happens. So I try to be very cognizant of how I speak, especially when I'm talking to the children. And like when they're misspeaking, like if they tell me I don't got, I will correct them. Like, especially because you're in a school setting, and especially if you're in an ELA, an English language arts class, don't say I don't got, it's I don't have. Or they might say her did this to me. It's not her did this, it's she did that to me. Um, and then people like to substitute the word they for their. Like they say they didn't take out their tablets. No, it's they didn't take out their tablets. That's a whole an entire separate word. And I think I am going to come on the channel for those of you who have children or they need help in English or anything like that. I'm going to start doing English lessons because there and there. There are three different ways to spell it, and a lot of the children don't understand how to do that. And I think that's important because you fill out a job application, which now people don't do job applications. It's more like resumes. We have to write our own resumes. But I remember one of my, she used to be a friend of mine. She was in high school and she was trying to get a job back in the day at Taco Bell, y'all, in high school. And she didn't know how to spell the word neighbor because she wanted to put down a professional reference. So she spelled neighbor, Nabor. And I read it and I was actually shocked that she didn't know how to spell Neighbor, but she didn't know any better, y'all. So how you read, how you write, it is a reflection of you. And people do judge you on your intelligence level, depending on how you communicate, whether that's writing or, even communicating verbally. People do judge you on that. And so you don't want to be in a job interview and make these mistakes or making these grammatical errors, because I'm pretty sure they're going to pass up your resume. That's probably going to happen if you don't know how to do these things. And so that's why it's important for children to understand this information, right? Y'all are laughing. Are you laughing because she didn't know how to spell neighbor? I've seen a lot of adults misspell a lot of things too, even like on YouTube and certain chat sections that, but then again, you don't know because a lot of people are not English speakers. They are English is their second language. So we have to take that into account. But for her, English was her first language. and she didn't know how to spell neighbor, N-A-B-O-R. So she was using, what she heard. She heard the N, she heard the A, she heard the B-O-R. So that's how she spelled it. So this tells me that there is a lack of reading going on, because if she was reading, she would have known that, that's not how you spell that word. So this is why I say that reading is very fundamental, especially in the formulative years when they are first being introduced to language and reading and writing. I mean, like, if you don't get them by the time they're in third grade, like by third grade, it's almost over with. And I hate to say that, but by the time they reach third grade, if they are not an avid reader, it's almost too late for them, because now they're playing catch up. And compared to the rest of the children, they're going to suffer, y'all. I work with third graders all the time. And sometimes I ask the class, okay, who in here can read? Who's a strong reader? Who's a good reader? Everybody, me, 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 me. Okay, we're going to find out. So I'm going to call on some of y'all to read aloud. He said, I remember there, and there. Yes, yes. Y'all, our teachers were on it back in the day. They didn't play with us. Either you passed or you failed. And this grade system, let me tell you what they're doing today with the grade system. So back when I went to school, the grade scale went like this. To get an A, you had to get 100 to a 93. A 93 was a cutoff, and that was an A minus. Okay. Then it went from a 92, which was a B, to I think it went to like 92 to 89, I believe, was a B, I believe. Or it was like 92 to a 90, something like that. Then I think a C was like in the 80s. It was like high 80s to an 80. I think, high 80s to an 80. So like 88 to an 80 was a C. And then if you got like a 79, that was a D. That was a D for us. If you got, let me see, if you got a 69, that was an F. You failed. This grade system, y'all, they have a more lax grading scale. So now an A is a 100 to a 90. A B is a 90 to an 89, I think. And then a C is like an 88 to, I don't know, but I know for a fact that they can get a D, and they can be like in the 60s and they still get a D, y'all. And not just that, it's just the fact that they are allowing them. Oh, I want to talk about this testing that they're doing. They're testing these children to death. Why are y'all freaking testing these children? The test scores are not going to change that much just because you tested them again. I'm testing them again. Oh, they're in testing. If they don't freaking understand the concept of how to analyze what they're reading because they can't read, the test scores are not going to improve that drastically. So y'all can test them until the end of time. Third grade and fifth grade, it's not going to make a freaking difference. And it's very annoying, y'all, because I go to the school and they're like, oh, they're testing this week. You want to be a test practitioner? want to marry? Just kidding. So look, third grade, they're testing them, and fifth grade is a critical test moment for them. So third and fifth graders are being tested, right? So they test them at the very beginning of the school year. I've never seen anything like this in my life, because we didn't get tested like this. We did have certain tests that we had to take to see if we were going to pass to the next grade. Y'all, I feel like even if they don't pass these tests, they're still pushing them through to the next grade. So what difference does it make? Y'all are getting failing test scores on the reading because they're not proficient, and they keep retesting them and retesting them and retesting them. And it's like some of them still are in testing by the time the class goes to lunch. So they'll send them to another classroom and be like, oh, go get your lunch, come to the classroom, and go to the other classroom because you have to finish your test. I don't care how long you spend in there. If you don't understand what you're reading because you can't read, your test score is not going to improve that much. Why do you keep retesting these children? You test them and test them and test them all throughout the year. They're taking this test at the beginning, this test in the middle, this test at the end, and then they have a thing called retest because they didn't pass the last test. And they're sending the worksheets home for the parents to sign about the test. Make sure your child gets plenty of rest. Make sure they eat a breakfast. You need to be telling the parents, make sure you're reading with your children and that they understand what they're reading. That's what needs to be going on, talking about have a breakfast. You said, imagine if you could choose where you send your kids to school. They can probably get a F plus now. Y'all are a trip, man. It's just like it doesn't even matter anymore. It's just like they're just going through the notions to say they went to school. And like I said, the test scores to me doesn't make sense because they are below the test scores. What I've seen at the schools are below average national levels. They are below where they should be. And if you don't believe me, you can go right onto this YouTube and just pull up something from these teachers talking about how the test scores are suffering. One teacher, y'all, she said that 0.5% of her children are failing compared to what it was like when she was teaching in 2005, y'all. And you know, a lot of teachers, they stay teachers for like 24 years, 20 some years, 30 years, and they retire. You said you would choose homeschool, but a lot of these teachers are saying they're retiring early because they can't take it anymore. And it's not because they don't care. It's because they are met with such adversity from the parents, not either participating, not caring, the behavioral issues, and then it's like whatever the politics are for the school, whatever you have to teach. And even though they know these children they are not grasping the concept, they still push them to the next grade anyway. So you're pouring all this work, all this energy into the children for them to just get passed to the next grade anyway, whether they knew it or not. When I first started working with the children, and I was really blown away because I was asking one of the teachers, I'm saying, oh, this child, they don't know X, Y, and Z. Well, how did they make it to this grade level? She looked at me and shook her head. She said, that's what they do. That's what they do now. I was like, are you serious? It doesn't matter if they know it or not. They just push them to the next level. I said, really? So even if they didn't earn it, the children that actually worked to get to the next grade level, that knew their work, it's like it's not fair, y'all. It's not right. That's so unfair. That's like people that like went to college and actually did their work, and the people that use Chat GPT and AI. Like you actually thought about what you were saying and what you were writing, but the person over here had Chat GPT and AI to write their paper, but y'all still got the same degree. So what difference does it make anymore, y'all? It's just all craziness, y'all. Caitlin, you sound real miserable. You probably one of the idiotic people that I'm talking about. You're probably one of the people, and if you have children, your child is probably one of the ones that are illiterate, and you probably were one of these people that I'm talking about. So I don't know what you're talking about. My basic education is trash. I'm not talking about my basic education. I'm talking about these children's basic education is trash. So get your facts together. Apparently you can't properly analyze what I'm saying. See, that tells me that your comprehension skills are in the trash. That's what's going on. That made you feel better, Caitlin? That made you feel better? To say that? I got to treat Caitlin like I treat the children. So when they want the attention, sometimes, they don't know how to get your attention, so they have to act out. That's what children do. They act out in the comment section. So she's supposed to be an adult, but she's probably like have like a childlike mentality, a very immature level. But what I'm saying makes a lot of sense, y'all, because I had a teacher come on earlier saying that she's having these issues as well with the children in her classroom, right? Because we're talking about children and their education level today. So you try again, Caitlin. You try again. Try to get some comprehension skills going, because that's certainly not what I'm talking about over here. Y'all, people try it all the time. She probably was one of those ones that didn't comprehend well in school and she's mad, right? Probably irritated about it. Guess again. Try again, Caitlin. So sorry to tell you that you did not pass. You probably need to go back to kindergarten. See if you can go back and figure it out. Okay? You didn't win. All right, so let's hear what this teacher has to say, y'all.
Of fourth graders scored below a proficiency level in reading. There are so many kids out there that are being passed along in the system that cannot read. Reading is a part of everyday life. And the fact that we are failing these children says a lot about America's educational system. We are worried about the wrong things right now. We are focused on the wrong things right now. At this point, this is not solely a teacher problem. Parents need to take accountability. They need to help their kids. We are doing what we can with the time that we are given. So many people underestimate all of the things that teachers have to do. Yes, of course our job is to help your students, and we do that. By the end of third grade, I'm no longer teaching those basic phonics skills. That's where you have to step in as a parent. Advocate for your kid. There are so many parents that don't know what they're capable of doing. Inform yourself. You have so many resources available to you. School kids are not reading. Kids are not reading. Kids cannot read. It doesn't matter if your child's at an A school or if your child's at a D school or if your child's at a charter school or a private school. I have seen kids at all areas. They all struggle. They all struggle because they don't have exposure and they don't have We can blame the Department of Education. We can blame the literacy rates been at an all-time high. We can blame the schools, the teachers. But education teacher of 4 years, I specifically teach kids with learning disabilities how to read and to read accurately. We're not talking about teaching kids to read with special education disabilities. We're talking about teaching kids to read that have not had that exposure and that just cannot read, and no environmental factors included. Exposure and consistency. These two things are most important when reading, and these kids are not exposed to reading at a young age, and they do not have consistent reading, whether that's at school, at home. They don't have enough exposure of reading in general. The perception of teaching kids to read is it is the teacher's job to teach their children to read. It is the school's job to teach their children to read. Have you been in a public education classroom recently? Teacher to student ratio makes it nearly impossible to differentiate all different reading levels consistently. And I'm talking every single day for targeted reading instruction. You can have the most experienced and most knowledgeable reading expert teaching your child. If you are not doing it consistently, and I mean at least 4 times a week, 15 to 20 minutes a session, it's not going to be effective. If you have elementary school kids that are reading at grade level or even below grade level, get them a tutor, get them extra support to give them those skills to have them be successful with reading. Reading is not meant to be natural, but you need consistency, exposure, and somebody that is qualified and knows the science of reading for it to be successful for any child in a short amount of time.
I wanted to just spend a moment and tell people why I left the system. You know, I'm a former English teacher. Oh my God. And a lot of my videos when I first started on TikTok talked about the school system and what was happening in the school system. So I made a decision to retire. It hurt me and it pained me to go into my classroom, present a book or present a text, and my kids didn't know the first thing about reading comprehension. My kids did not know the first thing about a literary discussion. So I couldn't have a content-specific conversation with my kids because my kids didn't know content-specific vocabulary. And if you don't know the vocabulary attached to English, just like if you don't know it attached to math, you're not going to do well in that subject. So I left literally in tears because I knew that I was seeing the failing of the school system in the United States of America because I knew going forward until that something happens, I would never be able to enjoy a literary conversation with my students because my students could not read. I was teaching kids that were 3 to 4 grade levels behind. None of them understood what I was saying. And this is every school. This is not just one school. This is every school that I worked at.
Yeah, it's okay if they.
So, and that's another thing too, y'all. I was working with a third grader last school year, and I was pulling them into groups, right? And we were going over math. She got an attitude with me, and I'm trying to help her, right? I'm trying to help her because she didn't know the difference between the plus addition symbol and the minus takeaway subtraction symbol. And I was trying to tell her the difference. And so sometimes they'll get an attitude with you for trying to help them or correct them. I'm like, well, this is what this means. And it's just you're met with attitude for no reason. Like, why are you mad at me? There was a second grader, y'all, and she was not really able to read. So sometimes they get an attitude because I guess they're embarrassed and they need someone to take it out on. But this really stems from being at home because your parents should be actually going over this stuff with you as well. And so now they use the concept of takeaway. So they don't say subtraction or minus, because I have to actually be um I have to be like really mindful of my word choice that I'm using, because I come into the classroom assuming that they know what I'm talking about if I say subtraction or minus, but I have to understand maybe they haven't been exposed to that text before, that terminology. So I have to say takeaway. This is what they say now, takeaway. So you have 10 take away 6 or 20 take away 8, stuff like that. You have to be mindful, because if you say subtraction or minus, they might not understand what you're saying. But this was a regular concept that we knew from the time, I don't know, like I was in first grade, I automatically knew what that meant. Even with addition, sometimes you'll have to watch it because they will get it confused, make sure they pay attention to those symbols, the adding and the addition. Yeah, so that's another thing. Um, it's just simple stuff. But like if you ask basic questions sometimes with the children, you can kind of pinpoint where they're struggling, and just they don't like to show their work either when it comes to math. So in order for the teacher to understand where they're going wrong and why they're getting the wrong answer, a lot of times you need to see their work to see how they are coming up with their concept of getting this answer. And they don't like to do that. So when we go over problems on the board, I'm thinking that I'm telling them to copy it down. What they're doing is copying down the answer. So when I look at their paper, I'm like, all you did was write the answers. And then even the answers that we're going over in class, you're still getting them wrong. And I gave you the answer. Like, this is how bad it has gotten. There's no way that you should be copying from the board and still getting it wrong. And then I also see them copying each other's papers a lot, which I will let them know that this is unacceptable, because this person, just because you think they're smarter than you, could be wrong. They could be incorrect. Don't listen to other people. And I tell them, this is why God gave you a brain, because you have a brain to use it. So you think you're not smart enough to figure this out on your own? Then why are you copying off their paper? Because what's going to happen if they're not around one day? What's going to happen if you have a test one day? You think you're going to copy your way all the way through school? You have to, yeah, it starts in the home. And that's why anybody that's coming on here getting offended, making any type of disrespectful comment in the comment section like Caitlin did, she's probably one of those ones that have children that are going through this. And now she wants to be a hit dog hollering right in the comment section. I don't care, because I really feel like it's no excuse for this to be going on in school, y'all. Basic stuff, y'all, that you can do at home to make sure your child is ready for school. Like I said, simple school supplies that only cost $1.25 from the dollar store. When I was a tutor, I went to the dollar store and bought things just to have for my tutoring sessions. Not that I had to do it, but because I thought it would make a better learning experience for the children. And they were very much engaged. They loved being in my tutoring group. And yeah, you just have to really care about your children's education. I feel like if your child is illiterate and you're going out here buying an expensive car, if you're going out here buying Jordans, if you're buying laptops for your children, if you're buying iPhones for your children, you're buying all these gadgets and Xbox, and you're buying PlayStations, and your child is illiterate, your priorities are backwards, and you're the reason why your child is failing in school, because the child is not going to be the one to say, oh, I need to do this. This is important. The parent has to have some culpability in this matter, right? So it goes back to the home. It really does. Thank you for saying that. And a lot of parents don't want to take accountability for it. The baby makers, that's what they are. Probably expect the teachers to be the parent. They do. You know how many children come into the classroom expecting you're not, a teacher is not just a teacher. A teacher is a parent, a nurse, a counselor, a social worker, a coach. You're many different things. And the children expect. I had a boy the other day, and he was missing his mother. He was a Hispanic speaker, but he was really smart, right? Because he could do his math. So that's another thing. Even though they might not do well because they're still learning English, so it's nothing against them. But what I am saying, they understand the concept of math because all the symbols are universal when it comes to math. So a lot of them excel very well in math. but he was having separation anxiety. He was ready to go home. So he wanted to sit in my lap. And I was like, "Oh, you ready to go home?" And he knew what I was saying. I said, "You want your mama?" Because he kept saying, "Mommy, mommy." I said, "Well, you're about to go home. It's the end of the day." So he wanted to sit in my lap. But I was like, you know, that comes from that separation anxiety. That's what that comes from. Yeah, a teacher's not a parent. I didn't let him sit in my lap, by the way. Yeah, I didn't let him do that. The girl yesterday was like, "Can you pick me up?" Now, for some time, I did have to kind of pick her up to help her get in her chair because she was special needs. But I told her when we were on the playground, I said, "No, I'm not picking you up." I said, "You're heavy," because I don't want them to feel that it's appropriate, for strangers to be touching them and doing this. Now, some children unexpectedly will come up to me and just hug me for no reason because that's just how they are, and then they'll ask me, "Can I get a hug?" And I'll be like, "Okay, you can get a hug or whatever." So the teachers, they have this thing where you can get a fist pump, you can get a high five or a hug. So yesterday I was at the, standing out there and they were like pointing to what they wanted. Most of them wanted a hug, and that's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, I don't let children sit in my lap. I don't do that. But he was wanting his mother, is what I'm saying. So sometimes they see a female as like more of a maternal person because they have more of a nurturing spirit. And another thing that I want to touch on before I leave is that I would love to see more men in the schools. Especially, I would like to see melanated males in the school system. I love when I see that. I think it's so important to have melanated males in schools, y'all. The other day, there was a melanated male, and he was teaching fifth grade, and I saw how the children were responding to him. They were trying to get me to deal with fifth grade, but I told the principal, I said, I prefer to be the English learner teacher. I said, because for one thing, children will size you up, and I'm almost the same size as the children. So I don't feel like going through that, with the fifth graders. But he was a tall, nice looking, melanated male. And I think we need to have that authoritative figure in classroom settings for the respect so that children can just they need to have that mentorship, and they need to have that relationship of seeing especially melanated male figures in these positions, especially in school settings, being teachers, especially if you could get into teaching, that would be great. I know that they are in dire need of staffing at schools. They're in great need of teachers, good teachers. But any way that you could help out melanated men, don't think that it's, you're going to be looked down upon, because they're in need of you. And also, they do background checks, of course. You can't work with children until they pull your background. You get fingerprinted. You go through all these measures and stuff. So, but my thing is, if you have an interest in working with youth, even if it's middle school, high school, elementary, there's a need. There's definitely a need for you out there. You said a teacher can be like a parent, though they are. I mean, I have children that tell me a lot that I don't even ask for. A lot. They tell you a lot of stuff. They open up to you if they feel comfortable. You'll know when they feel comfortable because they'll come up to you. I could show you a note that one of the girls, hold on. I got to go get this note real quick. I'm going to show you what one of the girls wrote me. Don't go anywhere, y'all. I'll be right back. Okay. I'm going to show you this note real quick. All right, y'all. I am back. Had to go get my computer bag for a second. So I always bring my laptop to school, to class with me. But okay, this was one of the fourth graders that I worked with this week. Okay. Let me take my sunshades off so I can see. So she said, if you can see this, this is her note to me. She gave me this. Now, this is my first time meeting this girl. I love you. Okay. And I don't know what she put at the end of it, but then she wrote this. She said, I love you, MON. I don't know what that means, y'all. Like I said, she's in fourth grade. MON. I don't know what that means. Because you nice and you so sweet. Look at how she spelled sweet. Now, I'm not talking about her, because she meant well. Okay, but she's in fourth grade, but this is how she spelled it. And I did not ridicule her or chastise her for it. I just accepted it and I was like, "Oh, thank you." Because I know she had, where her heart was. But I saved this. I have so many things that these children, they try to give me stuff and I tell them, "No, you take it home." They'll draw me pictures. They were like, "Oh, I'm drawing you." I got like a stack full of stuff from children making me stuff, y'all, and I keep it. And this just lets me know that I am having some type of impact, even though they just met me for the first time. And they do recognize me, y'all, when I go. One of the boys, unbeknownst to me, y'all not gonna believe this. One day I'm going to the mailbox. I'm on the phone talking to my mama. Call my mama. Call my mama. Right? I'm on the phone with my mama at the end of the day. So I'm checking the mail. So this little boy calls me. He was like, you are my teacher. And I turned around, I recognized his face. I said, "You remember me?" "Yeah." So I asked him, I said, "What school did you go to?" So he told me what school he went to. But y'all, they recognize you. So like even like they will transfer from school to school. And if I'm walking down the hallway, they be just waving. So I'll remember their faces. I might not remember their name, but they remember me, y'all. And I'll be just getting all the hugs and all the love. So it's very rewarding, is what I'm saying. It's very rewarding knowing that you are making an impact on these children. Because, like I said, they might not, you don't know what they're going through at home. One of the girls was writing her poem, and she wrote that her neighborhood is crazy. And I said, "Your neighborhood is crazy?" Then she said, "My neighborhood is ghetto." And I said, "Oh," I said, "I'm so sorry you have to go through that." I said, "But you don't have to write that in your poem. And she's like, "Sometimes I go with my daddy or whatever." So, like I said, they're going through a lot. And I just think it's so unfair too if you are, a baby maker, especially if you are a father or, you're a male and you have children. Children need their fathers. I don't care how much the mother, is there for them and providing for them and doing what she can do. But if that mother is working and doing all these things, children still need their other parent, y'all. It's just very essential. This should be really like second nature. It shouldn't even be a thing where people have to reinforce that. If you have a child out here, please, for the sake of this society and your child and their future, be a real parent to them. Stop getting locked up, going to jail. Stop doing that, causing an unstable environment for your child. It's not fair. And I just think that, like I said, a lot of these things, as far as why they can't focus in school, why they can't concentrate, why they think reading is a task and a challenge and this and that, we don't know some of the pressures that they're going through at home. We don't know if they have to babysit their other children at, their other siblings at home and stuff. They might have a lot of responsibility that they shouldn't have to go through. Like they're not able to be children. And that's really unfair. Yeah, it's heartwarming. You said that's so sweet. Yes, they're like I said, they can be very sweet. You just have to find a way to relate to them. Even the girls can give a lot of attitude, y'all. I'm telling you, these girls have attitude from second grade. This girl had the most beautiful hair, y'all. She had all this long, black, beautiful hair, and she had it braided. It was so pretty. She was really cute. And I said, "Your hair is so pretty." But she had a very grown attitude. When I said she was grown for her age, she was grown for being in the second grade, y'all. Almost the same height as me. I'm telling you. So these girls need a lot of attention, especially from their father, because I'm telling you, they're developing very fast. Okay, when you look at them, they are very developed very early. And you just want to make sure a father is around somewhere in the parameter to protect these girls, because there's a lot of crazy people in this world, y'all. and you just don't want them to be taken advantage of, because a girl can look older than what she is, and she can have a very grown attitude. She can lie by her age. That doesn't mean that she's grown, because she's still a child. These are still children. So just because, and that's another thing, I definitely disagree with men or males taking advantage of children and young girls just because they look a certain way, because they still have a childlike mentality, y'all. They are still childlike in the head. So they should know better. They should know better. You know what I'm saying? What's good, Jamil A. Lewis? Do you have children? Do y'all have children in the chat section? I'm just curious to know. If you have children in this day and age, it's a scary thing because they're so exposed to a lot. Social media is a thing. I know my sister said she monitors the phones for my nephews, and my oldest nephew now, he is, I think, in 8th grade. Yeah, he's taller than me now, y'all. Both of my nephews, two of them are taller than me. One is 11, the other one is, I think, 13. And it's just so crazy seeing children grow up, because I was there for all of them when they were born. I held them when they came out of the hospital, y'all, when they were in the hospital. And it's just so crazy, because I told you how I taught them through COVID. And I just can't believe that they are just getting so big and they're just hovering over me. But that's all the more love, y'all. So children really are the future. I just hope that we can really pour more into their academia and less into all this other stuff that doesn't really mean a lot. These gadgets, children really want your attention. That's really what they want. When you show them that they care, that you care, and that you're interested, that's half the battle right there, because now they know someone is holding them accountable. And they want to do better. So what I have seen in the classroom setting is, like, when I show an interest in what they're doing and I give them, that positive reinforcement and encouragement, they'll come to me asking me for my input, And so that's all we really do, is put in a little effort, and you will get more, you'll get more effort out of them that way. You don't have any children yet? Well, CJ, look, this is what I'm gonna tell y'all. Be very careful, and it's okay if you don't have children. Be very careful who you procreate with. That's the number one. That's the number one rule to the whole thing, is be very careful with whom you procreate with, who you share your genetic material and DNA with, because your genetic DNA is very divine. And a lot of people are just going out here baby making with anybody. And that's why you have a lot of dysfunction going on with these makeshift families, and a lot of people have unstable environments, because it's a lot of things going on with the mother and the father, and so it's very unsettling for the child. So before you bring children into that chaos, you should actually look at your potential partner and say, do I think this is somebody that I could see as my children's father? Do I see this as somebody that I feel could be my child's mother? Do I think they would make a good mother? Do I think they are nurturing? Do I think they would be a protector for my family? Do I think that they are a financial provider? But I don't know what's going on. I think people just go out here like animals in heat. They have a child, she becomes pregnant, it wasn't planned, now we got a baby, right? And people got to talk about having, discipline in that arena. I'm not judging anybody. You said speak on what I know. I am speaking on what I know about, because I am working with children. Okay. And when I'm working with children, I know that the children that I talk to, when I ask them, are you being read to at home? Tell me no. So if you're one of the parents not being in your child's life, if you're one of the children, if you're one of the parents or baby makers not reading to your child, then maybe you need to reevaluate some things. You said only people who have a child should judge. I'm not judging. I'm telling you what it is. And not only that, you didn't just listen to all the videos from teachers that are teaching your children that said that this comes from home. You're not listening to that, are you? Okay. You need to be careful how you, your opinion about making statements about being a parent. I don't need to be careful about anything. I'm being very careful about how I am communicating this, because people need to be held accountable. That's the problem in society. People are hypersensitive and they don't like hearing the truth about themselves. And if we don't talk about it, then this problem is going to keep being an issue. All right. Thank you so much, CJ. Thank you so much. I've been told that many times. So yeah, you know, what I am saying is very truthful. You know, if you're not a part of your child's life and you're not regularly there, they feel that effect because they are coming into the school telling us about it. Okay, Jamelia Lewis. I don't know if you're Jamelia. You must be a female. Okay, so Jamelia, I apologize because I thought you were a male. So if you're a mother, okay, and I don't know what happened in your situation, you don't need to come over here getting hypersensitive with me because this is what's going on, and the children are coming into the classroom talking about it to us. There are people who have two parent in the home and out there stealing and killing. Yeah, there are. I'm gonna put your comment up here because there are people who have two parents in the home and out there stealing and killing. I'm not saying that all children that grow up in single parent households are having these issues, but I think it is a problem that is going on that we need to address. And this is the thing that people don't like to take accountability for. If you're out here and you're making children and you didn't plan it and you really didn't know that person too well and you just got pregnant and that keeps being a problem and keep happening, that is affecting the child. So you don't need to get on here talking about, oh, speak on what you know about. I am talking to you about what's happening because the children are coming in the classroom talking about it. Oh, the kindergartner yesterday was in the bathroom having a meltdown because her daddy was in jail and she can't see him. I've spoken to a lot of children telling me about their parents. As a matter of fact, they had fifth graders had an assembly day last school year, right? And some of the parents showed up and they took their children home. One girl had a complete breakdown, y'all. I don't even know why she was crying, but she broke down in tears because her parents didn't show up. Her mother didn't come. And then they didn't, sign her out of school early. And I'm like, well, maybe her mama had to work. Maybe her mama couldn't show up. But it really impacted her to the point that she was in tears, breaking down, crying. And I mean, she was having a meltdown in fifth grade. So this is actually impacting the children. So you don't need to get mad at the people that are talking about it. You actually need to reevaluate what could be causing these behaviors in these children. All right, because it's affecting them in school. They cannot focus, they cannot concentrate. And sometimes it's because of their background at home. All right, I'm not saying it's all, I didn't say, you never heard me come on here and say all single parents or all single mothers. And there are a lot of single fathers out here. So shout out to the single fathers. You're doing what you have to do. I've actually had friends that are single fathers that took the children into their custody. Okay, because the mother was not doing what she needed to do, or the mother was in jail, or the mother was just doing whatever, and they took custody of their children. So it can go the other way around. What I'm saying is both people are responsible for coming together and making these children. So they need to both be equally responsible for upbringing these children. Okay. If they are worthy of being a parent. Because like I said, there's a difference between being a baby maker and being an actual parent. You're not parenting if your child is sitting in school and they don't actually have a learning complex or some type of thing that's holding them back from learning. If there's nothing really, they've been diagnosed with. And that's another thing, even though they've been diagnosed, they're still very intelligent, y'all. Because I've worked with autistic children and they're still very highly intelligent. They know better. Okay, stop using these, like, people like to use these labels a lot of times, and the children play on that too, because I've had children do that to me. Oh, well, he's like that because X, Y, and Z. And they'll tell you, and they will play on that with you. And if you allow them to do that, they use it as a crutch. That girl that I met yesterday that had that situation where she couldn't really walk all the way properly, did not use, her situation as a crutch. When she got on that playground, that girl told me, I want to get out. She wanted to get out of her chair. She wanted to get on that playground, and she was moving around by herself. And if she needed my help, she'd say, hold my hand. And she was like, I got it. So like I said, these children are very highly intelligent. They are capable of anything. It is what the mother and father pours into them, and it starts at home. I didn't put all parents in one basket. I am saying that if this is the scenario, okay, if that is, because that's part of the issue. And let's not act like that's not going on, because it is going on. It's going on a lot more than what people want to take accountability for. I've heard stories where, people have been together and the other parent or the other party turns into a monster. People do. And I also think that demonic spirits jump into people too, because these people out here acting crazy. I don't know what's causing this. I don't know if it's these injections, doing COVID. I don't know if it's the chemtrails. I don't know if it's the chlorine they're putting in the water, the poison in the food. But you got people out here acting freaking crazy and turning into, I don't know, some type of tyrannical monsters out here. So you don't know sometimes who this person can turn into further down the line. So I do know real issues take place, but there are what I am saying, Jamelia, there are far too many people just out here randomly meeting people. Oh, they got pregnant, they had a baby, and now they have this hostile living arrangement or a situation where this child is not getting what they fully need from both parents. And that is becoming a problem. And then you're seeing it go to the school, and then children are acting out in the school. So now the teacher can't concentrate on teaching because this child wants to have a temper tantrum about everything. And you're wondering, why are they acting out? Now they got to go see the counselor. And it's just like, it's a disruption. You can't teach the class. And it's impacting and infecting society. If they're doing this as a child and they keep getting pushed to the next grade and they keep using this as a crutch, when they become an adult, they think that these behaviors are okay. And when they become an adult, they can get locked up for having a temper tantrum and acting out and potentially hitting another child, hitting another student, hitting another person, another adult, because they're not supposed to be putting their hands on people. That's assault, right? So we teach them young, hands to yourself, stop kicking, stop pushing. All these things shouldn't be going on. When I was in school, I wasn't putting my hands on other people. When I had a situation and I put my hands on somebody, it's because I was provoked and I was either defending myself or defending my younger sister, and I had to fight. So it's a difference. But just to be acting out and slamming this and doing that, it's reasons that this is going on. You said, Jamelia, she's just speaking her experience. That's all, just having an educational conversation. She's speaking facts. He said, I'm not a parent and barely work with children, so I'm going to sit this one out. Okay, well, if you don't work with children or anything like that, I'm telling you, just look at the videos that's out there on the internet from the teachers that are working with these children. And it's across the board. It's a nationwide situation. So it's not just me. Spiritual warfare is out there, y'all. And people are under spiritual attack. So we got to make sure we're well equipped, because children can be under spiritual attack too. And you want your child to be well equipped when anybody tries to sway them a certain way. You want them to be well equipped when their peers try to pressure them. And it could be an unsuspecting adult that might try to sway your child the wrong way. Talk to your children. Have real adult conversations with your children, y'all. Trust me, they're not too young to understand. They are so intelligent. These young things are into stuff that you would never know they're into, that they know about, talking in the classroom, speaking about topics and stuff. Fourth graders talking about eyelashes, and I'm going to get my eye. I'm like, what? What do y'all know about eyelashes in fourth grade? Little Hispanic girl telling me she want to get her eyebrows done. What? I see little second graders getting their nails done and all this stuff. So they're not too young. You need to really have conversations with them. Don't let people take advantage of your children. They're very smart. Trust me. They're very manipulative, and they know how to manipulate people, y'all. That girl that I was telling you about that was in the chair, she has like a little speech. I want to say she speaks differently, but she understands. She's so sweet. She's such a sweetheart, by the way, the cutest little thing. But she was trying to take advantage of me on the playground, y'all. So I told her that recess was over. All the other children are lining up. Oh, she wants to just still sit there. She knows how to put herself in her chair, right? If she needs help, I can help her. So I'm telling her, come on, it's time to go. I told her 3 times. Now, I could tell by the expression on her face that she knew what she was doing, because she had this certain look about her, and I read her energy. So the principal came out there and said, look, I heard her tell you, get yourself up and get in this chair. It is time to go. Don't you know she got herself up, got in that chair, and it was time to go? So like I said, don't let them use these, things that they have going on if they have like what they call a disability, because technically it's not all the way a disability, y'all. It's just a different way that they're in the world. Like even if they're autistic, it's a different way that they see the world. Don't let them use that to their ability, because they will. I had one boy, he had got diagnosed with some type of behavioral issue. Kindergarten boy, first grade, y'all. No, kindergarten. He tells me, and the teacher already wrote the notes out for me. She was like, okay, he has to take breaks throughout the day. So if he needs a break, call the office. We just got to class. Class is just beginning. He tells me he's going to the phone, trying to call. I said, what are you doing? I'm going to take a break. I said, class just began. Class just started. I'm supposed to get a break and I need my break now. I looked at this boy like, who the freak is he talking to? Y'all. So that's what I'm saying. Don't let these children take advantage of y'all. 2-year-olds are manipulative. Okay. 2 years know how to manipulate. Like I said, children are highly intelligent, because one thing about the human brain, especially in the formative years, if you learn about the brain and psychology, the brain is taking in a lot of knowledge at these ages like a sponge. This is why they say if your child is going to learn a different language, it's best to learn when they are a child, because the way the brain works is it's easier to learn in those years. You know, you're learning your language, you're learning so much. By the time they get to around 7 to 8 years old, that's why I said by third grade, if they haven't really learned how to read all the way, it's going to be so hard for them to get ahead. Because by that time, they've really understood the concept of language and learning. But they are so intelligent. They learn everything. They are taking in the world. They are learning so much. So this is the best time to teach them everything that they can learn, y'all. Different languages, if they play an instrument, the piano, whatever it is, y'all, that's the best time to learn. Y'all laughing at me because that little kindergartner was trying me, y'all, was trying me. I remember I felt like I had to be a freaking drill sergeant in kindergarten. I felt bad. I felt bad because I was like, I can't believe I'm in here yelling at kindergartners. But I had to do it, y'all. I had to do it because they were taking advantage of me. They knew I was a substitute teacher. They were looking at my demeanor and they knew that I'm not their regular teacher. We can get away with murder, y'all. And I had to do that in order to have order and structure in the classroom. Children are amazing. They are something else, Anthony. Y'all laughing, but I'm telling you, when you're in the moment, it's not funny. It's not funny. I actually have conversations and I tell these children when I go in there, look, you're not going to take advantage of me because your teacher's not here. Hit that like button. Girl Dad cooking up deliciousness. Shout out to Girl Dad, y'all. Yeah, I've been on here for longer than what I expected. I was only supposed to be on here for an hour. I have enjoyed y'all. Jamelia, I hope I didn't offend you. But yeah, I'm just telling you my experience. Okay. You might have a different experience. All of us have different walks of life, different experience levels of dealing with children. And what I can tell you is if it's one thing that I do understand is how to effectively communicate with children. I understand their feelings. My sister said it's because you're so childlike. Children were always drawn to me, even like in my younger days, y'all. So in my early 20s, I would go in a store and I didn't understand why would babies always look at me and smile at me and want my attention. And I just couldn't understand it. My sister said, it's because you're so childlike. And they think I'm one of them. Y'all out there jump roping with the children, blowing bubbles with the children. They want me to play with them on the playground. One girl, they don't be knowing me though. That's the crazy part. One day, one girl at recess didn't even know me. She just came up to me. Can I walk with you? Then she wanted me to play with her. Then she said, I'm the teacher and I need you to go and come into my classroom for a second because I have a bad student and he's going to be put on punishment today. So I need you to stand over here. And I was like, listen to this girl. Like, they have the biggest imaginations and it's just so interesting to watch them. Y'all, and you know, the saddest thing is seeing them grow up and become young adults and they're no longer children anymore, but it has to happen, y'all, because if they don't grow up they're not gonna be here, so they have to get older, y'all. But children are very amazing. They have the best energy, the most energy, and it's very important what you pour into your child because they take in everything. But anyway, y'all, I've been on here long enough. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. Like, share, subscribe. Okay. This content might not be for everybody. You might get offended. You might not. I don't know. But I have a right to talk about my experience, whether you like it or not. Okay. I'm going to sign out. I got a lot to do. But if you can, if you have it in your schedule, if you have it, in your abilities and you like working with children, just consider, you know, going to a school and seeing what you can do, even if it's just volunteer work. But if you can work with children, if you can even tutor children, see if you can sign up for tutoring, y'all, because they're in need of it. Like, and they do want to learn. I don't think children want to like sit there and not know anything. I think they get embarrassed and they act out because of it. And I feel like they don't care because the parents don't implement that this is important. So sometimes you have that going on, but there are a lot of variable factors that go into it. But I do know that in today's time, that the school system across the nation is definitely going downhill compared to other countries. And if we don't turn this around, we're just going to have a lot of robots walking around with, like, I don't know, a low IQ level. I don't even like using that terminology, low IQ level, because those intelligent quotient tests, I don't go by that. I'm just going by, whether your child can comprehend, can read, can write, can analyze, and stuff like that. So not even going by a test score, but just going by what you can observe, right? If they're reading on grade level or not. And I don't even like to say grade level, because you can have a child that's in kindergarten reading on like a second grade level, right? It's what you put into that child. Okay. And like I said, there's no amount of information that they cannot learn. They're very intelligent, and that's the best time to teach them, when they're young. There's a difference between discipline and abuse. Yes, there is. I don't believe in abusing children at all whatsoever. And when I'm around these children and I see their innocence and just how bright they are, how caring. I've had children I have just gotten through yelling at the class, and they'll come up to me and give me a hug. I'm like, didn't I just yell at y'all? I love you. You're the best teacher ever. Can you come back to our class tomorrow? I'm like, no, I am not dealing with y'all little miscreants tomorrow. I will be somewhere else, y'all. But anyway, y'all, you said without God is downhill anyway. This has been an episode of Brown Girls Are Beautiful. Thank y'all so much for and liking and watching. Anthony, we definitely do. We need a higher power. Um, but I'll tune in with y'all later. Thank y'all so much. I enjoyed y'all. Signing out, y'all. This is my makeup episode of F Your Feelings Friday. All right. Signing out, y'all. Take care.